Hey guys, so this is the Purpose Project Initiative podcast with guest host Tristan. So without further ado, let's just get right into it. Tristan, could you introduce yourself? Where'd you go to high school? What state? How old are you? Where do you currently go to college? What sports do you like?
Yeah, my name is Tristan Solicito. I'm 24. I'm proud New York, proud New Yorker. Spending some time in Miami as of late, but grew up in New York, went to high school in New York. I go to Hamilton College now in upstate New York. I'm in my senior year. I'm a
Time flies,
multi-sport.
bro.
What's that?
The time flies. I remember when you
I
were just a
know.
freshman.
I know,
First year,
right?
sorry, not freshman.
Yeah, I pretty soon I'll be out in the normal world, but I played a lot of
Yeah.
sports growing up. I played football, basketball, baseball mostly, and then transitioned to golf right after I graduated from high school, after a couple injuries in football and baseball. And
You
I haven't
said
looked back ever since.
you said you injured your arm, right, playing baseball?
Yeah, it was my elbow ultimately. At first it was some knee issues, and then it was the elbow that ultimately kind of put the nail in the coffin there. Yeah.
Sheesh.
Yeah.
So you said you went to high school in New York?
I did, yeah. In Manhattan. I grew up in Manhattan. I've lived there my whole life pretty much. And that was a lot of fun. I loved New York. I loved my high school and yeah, I think it taught me a lot of really interesting and worthwhile things. At the same time, it was sort of a small bubble, so I didn't really get a full ex appreciation for sort of the breadth of certainly the whole world, but even, communities that were different from where I grew
Right.
up. Yeah.
Did you grow, if you don't mind me asking, did you grow up like affluent or were you guys uh
Yeah,
not
it's
poor but
certainly, yeah, certainly comfortable. And I think it's funny when you look back, and that's sort of what I was alluding to a little bit subconsciously there, because
yeah,
growing up,
yeah,
I felt it felt like we were poor in a really weird way, even though, yeah, certainly affluent would probably, we've probably fit into that category. Obviously, it's relative, but um, growing up in that community, in those circles, at my private high school, we were certainly one of the poorer families. And, without
okay,
having a full understanding of the rest of the world, that's sort of what felt normal to me. Was, I don't really, obviously, I don't want to put numbers on it, but crazy, crazy amounts of wealth around me, and that just sort of
right.
became the norm. And it wasn't until I sort of grew up, obviously, and understood the world a little bit better that I realized just, how many opportunities I was blessed with and that my parents worked so hard to provide us with.
Yeah, that's awesome, bro. So did you get, I know Hamilton doesn't offer um sports scholarships, but did you get an academic scholarship from Hamilton?
I didn't. My college selection process was kind of chaotic because I originally, like I said, I was planning to play baseball and then I got hurt. So I ended up taking the a gap year to sort of
Oh shit.
have my injuries, and I wasn't going to apply actually my senior year. I was going to take a year off, just play outside of school with my club team and then get recruited hopefully the following spring. And then last minute, my senior spring, I decided to just slip in an application to Hamilton just to test the waters. I really liked the school, and I obviously I got in, and at that point I wasn't really even intending on going, but as the clock kind of ticked down, I felt like I should take it because it was a school I knew I'd be really comfortable with.
And
Um,
Hamilton, for you guys who don't know, Hamilton is a great both academic and athletic school up in New York. It's in Clinton, New York, which is right next to Albany and Syracuse. It's a tremendous school. So Tristan, great job at getting into Hamilton and also getting to your senior year. I mean, something that I was not able to do. I of course got into Hamilton, which is how I met you back in 2021, which is crazy that it's now 2025.
oh, it's crazy, man. It
But
feels like yesterday. It really does.
Hamilton is a great school, and you did a great job getting to the point that you're at right now, bro.
Thank you, man. I appreciate it. I've loved my time here. It's been amazing. It's everything I've wanted in a school. And I've learned so much.
So what are some of the positives of Hamilton that you've enjoyed?
The biggest thing for me is the community. Obviously, that's you're probably going to hear that at a lot of different schools, but it's a small school. Like I mentioned, I came from a small high school. It was about 100 kids per grade, and it was a K-12 private school. So I knew everybody in my grade since we were five, pretty much. So that was something that was really important to me was the ability to know my classmates on a really personal level. And I think not only do we have the opportunity to do that because it's a small school and obviously the faculty as well, we have really good rapport and relationships with the professors because there are so few students, but it's also just a community of incredible people. And I can honestly say, I mean, I can't think of a person I've met on this campus that I dislike. So and plenty more than I could count that I really, really enjoy spending time with and have learned so much from in so many different ways, including yourself. So yeah, it's just the type of people that it attracts. I'm sure that can be said a lot for a lot of schools, obviously, but I've perused around other schools, obviously visited friends at other schools, and Hamilton to me, the student body and faculty, just the types of people that I love to be around and make me a better person every day.
Yeah, that's awesome, bro. That's very well said. Um, so are there any downsides to Hamilton, or mostly you focus on the positives?
Yeah, I mean, there's nothing really that I can say, I wish they did differently. Obviously there's certain stuff that not everybody's going to agree with. You can't please everybody, but for me personally, I've really, really enjoyed just about every professor I've had. I think they do a really good job of I wouldn't necessarily say catering to, but accommodating different students of different needs and different backgrounds and different um, goals. So I really don't have anything that I would really criticize. I mean, obviously, there's little things that maybe aren't perfect day to day, but it's difficult to operate such a prestigious institution with so many different types of students and people. So yeah, I really have nothing to complain about, to be honest.
It's awesome. So you have a YouTube channel of your own.
I do.
Um, Last time we talked briefly about your acting um aspirations and also your golf aspirations. So could you walk us through a little bit about how you thought of your YouTube channel and how long do you think you see yourself doing that for?
For sure. I will keep this brief. I mean, it's a long story, but I'll try to keep it short. I came to college looking to pursue acting and golf as well. And when I got to college, I kind of quickly realized that the three things that were important to me, golf, acting, and academics, I couldn't really put all of my heart and soul into all at the same time. So after my sophomore year, I took 6 months off. I went down to Miami to basically pursue golf and acting as hard as I could without, the burden of academics. And then when I got back to campus, I would obviously throw myself back into my studies. And I got down there and I realized that I only really had time for one of them. I was hoping to be able to do both, but I started to prioritize golf and realized that if I wanted to reach my ultimate goals of playing professionally, then the acting was going to have to kind of go on the back burner for a bit. And I was really frustrated by that. And then as the time went on, I was watching a lot of YouTube golf at night. It was kind of my only time to sort of decompress and take a breather after long days of training. And it hit me that if I'm able to sort of combine golf and acting through some sort of an entertainment platform, it can sort of be the perfect unison of the two, not only to kind of work on my skills, but, to create something that's going to entertain people because I was able to obviously personally feel the benefits of what it could do for me. It was a difficult time in my life, and it was, obviously as silly as this sounds, just watching those guys on social media and having a great time and smiling and joking around and playing the game that I love was incredibly impactful and important to me, and it helped me in a lot of different ways. So I wanted to be able to create that for other people, and I felt like since I had worked on my athletic abilities and my sort of entertainment abilities for a long time, it would be the perfect combination of the two and something that I'd be not only really comfortable doing, but really passionate about. And once I started to get into it, I quickly realized that it was something I want to do for a really long time. And at this point, I'm still pursuing professional golf, but the content creation is just as important to me as my playing endeavors. And I hope to do it for as long as people are going to watch, really. I mean, that's the ultimate goal. I want to have that impact, even if it's a couple people, right? I have a small channel right now. Hopefully, it's going to grow over the next couple of years when I have some more time to really pursue it all out. But
Yeah.
if a couple people watch it and their day is just a little bit brighter because of that, I'm achieving my goal. So, I hope to do it for as long as I'm probably able to play golf, which should be probably the foreseeable future, obviously. And we'll go from there, I guess.
Yeah, I've seen your YouTube shorts have been pretty successful.
Yeah, it's been fun.
Got a lot of following on YouTube Shorts, and your other videos are awesome too. I recommend anybody to. I'll drop the link of Tristan's YouTube in the bio below, but it's pretty unique stuff that you're creating. I enjoy it a lot.
Thank you, man. I appreciate that. Yeah, it's a fun time. We do a lot of really hard work, and it's been really rewarding.
So last time we talked, you talked a little bit about your mental health challenges.
Yeah.
Would you be comfortable talking about that on the podcast or no?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I don't think I'm unique, right, in the fact that I have some mental struggles. Mine, and it's always difficult to talk about because I don't want to, I think a lot of these terms get tossed around fairly loosely. And I do suffer from clinical OCD. It's pretty severe, and it's less so than it was, and I'll circle back to that in a second. But um, I think it's, a lot of these terms, OCD and mental illness and things of that nature, kind of get tossed around, and I want to be sensitive to that because there are people that are dealing with much worse than what I'm dealing with. But
Right.
what's that?
No, I said right.
Yeah, and I think so. I'll keep this brief as well, but for about from junior year of high school, which would have been what, 6 or so years ago, through basically my freshman year of college, I went through, yeah, I suffered from severe OCD, obsessive compulsive disorder. I went through essentially four doctors, who basically told me that I was beyond repair, without
Mm.
some sort of intervention, medication, etc., and essentially refused to continue to work with me, if I wasn't gonna, you know, take them up on those measures. And I wasn't comfortable taking medication. I knew that I could beat it myself. It wasn't really working, so I had to come up with a new solution. But for a good 2 to 3 years there, it was life-alteringly severe, and got to the point where it was very not only emotionally damaging, but physically dangerous as well. And it was encroaching upon a point of no return, unfortunately. And thanks be to God, of course, I was able to control it from, what would this have been? Maybe I think it was January of 2020 was when the bulk of it really went away for various reasons
Yeah,
I'll circle back to, and then still struggled with it for like 2 years, less so, but it was under control. And then, thank God, since then it's been in essence pretty much gone, through a lot of
that's
hard
awesome,
work
bro.
and faith. So still struggle with it to this day, of course, in different ways, but it's no longer interfering with my life in nearly the same sort of way that it did
Yeah,
for that period of time.
that's good news, bro. And I've had my own mental health struggles over the past, 4 to 5 years that I've been out of college. I
Mhm.
can, I understand your struggles and I'm proud of you for fighting through it, man. It says a lot about your character. That you're still
Thanks.
willing to go, that you're still willing to go after your dreams and aspirations, even though you do have this obstacle in your way.
For sure, man. I can say the same about you. I'm proud of you as well, and I think it all started with my faith. I mean, I got to a point where I mean, I'm a very faithful religious person, and I just felt like I was letting God down and Jesus down, and knowing that that's not what they wanted for me or of me, and that was really what changed things dramatically for me was the guilt that I felt. I wasn't able to pursue my dreams. I wasn't able to be a positive force in the world the way I wanted to be,
Right.
um, with what was going on in my head. So I had to, that was really the turning point for me when I decided that I had control over those demons and could do it could really do it myself without having to go to some of those more extreme measures. I just locked in, stayed strong, kept the faith, just trusted God,
Yeah,
and the rest kind of fell into place.
I love that. Yeah, I've had some of my most, I'd say, influential and powerful moments in church, and going through my struggles. Um, I had to lean into God myself, and I had to get a better understanding of what God meant for me and what Jesus means for me. Um, but I think it's everything. Having faith is so critical. Having faith in yourself, having faith in society, having faith in just the overall journey of being a human. Um, but yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Do you think that religion is a big part of your life?
Yeah, it's everything I mean, it has been for a long time, but more concretely, I would say in the last 5 or so years, sort of those overcoming those struggles was what made it more concrete, and I started to interact with my faith a little bit more. I'd always been faithful and always loved God, but not as actively as I have in the last 5 years. But yeah, it's everything. It roots everything I do, everything I think, everything I want to be, is all for the glory of God and Jesus. So yeah, it's everything to me.
So do you actively go to church or
I do. I go once or twice a week, usually once a week, every Sunday and sometimes on Fridays. But um, since I got to college, obviously it's been more difficult. They have mass on campus now, which they didn't um, when I first got here. So I am able to go in person now, but for a while, like right after COVID, I started watching it online because we didn't have it here on campus. But yeah, when I have the opportunity, I always go in person, and if not, yeah, I watch the service on YouTube every Sunday.
but yeah, I mean you bring up a great point of a lot of mental health obstacles can be overcome by simply just having faith in God and Jesus.
Yeah,
Um, and having faith over fear, not being ruled by your fear and
for
just
sure.
trying to go out there every day and try to make the best of it and thank God for all that, He's given to you and your inner circle. Um, but yeah, I agree with you, man. I think religion is very important for everyone to have.
For sure. I mean,
Um,
it's yeah, go ahead.
so how do you think you cut like your your OCD? Do you think that people are trying to put you in kind of like a box, like your doctors, or
What do you mean by a box? What do you mean specifically?
um kind of like reduce you to like your mental illness?
Yeah, that's an interesting question. I mean, I think because it was so severe, I think their sort of perception was that it was impossible to fix naturally, um,
Yeah,
for lack of a better word. And I think also like it's I've never really thought of it that way before, putting me into a box, but in a way, absolutely, because I think a lot of them sort of tried to follow, I mean, obviously as they should, sort of their educational background, their, medical prescriptions and what they were taught as, clinicians to do in these sort of situations, but it wasn't particularly tailored to me and what was going on in my head. It was, sort of a generic blueprint for how to treat people with these types of illnesses, and their sort of solution was always kind of just OCD medication at first, which I don't know if you know. I know this, I'm sure you don't, this the medical sort of specifics about this medications, but OCD, unlike a lot of other mental conditions, is very there is very little knowledge about OCD in medical circles. There's very little physiological understanding of actually what is going on in the brain. So the medication
right,
really is just sort of a serotonin booster to make it easier to fight those battles, but it doesn't actually target or prevent the physiological disability, if you will, that's going on in a person's brain. So with that in mind, I was confident that I could handle the struggles on my own. If the medication was simply just going to make it easier from the perspective
right.
of just removing stress, I wanted to stick with a natural route, and I felt like I could do so with a lot of faith, and a lot of trust in God, and a lot of mental strength, and obviously perseverance, and making sure that I didn't repeat old habits, if you will.
Yeah, that makes sense. I give you a lot of credit, dude.
Thank you, man. Appreciate that.
Requires a lot of self-belief and belief in a higher self or higher power.
For sure.
I know for myself, I've been on a lot of medications for quite a bit of time, and it's given me some negative side effects. So I give you, props for dealing with it on your own and fighting those battles, fighting those demons
Thank you, man.
without, without, you know, the the recommended psychiatric um, diagnosis.
Yeah, I mean, I think certainly medication and other treatment measures are certainly warranted and beneficial in a lot of circumstances. But for me, I was confident that I could control it naturally. Fortunately, thank God I was. But certainly want to recognize and acknowledge the fact that that's not true in every case. Certainly,
Right,
medication, the evolution of treatment measures over time has certainly been a revolutionary benefit to mental health mitigation and improving people's lives. So it's not that I'm anti-medication in general.
right.
I just didn't think it was right for me at the time, and I'm really proud, but also, of course, grateful first and foremost to God and Jesus for getting me through that, um, naturally, if you will.
Yeah, dude, that's pretty awesome, bro. It's a big accomplishment, my guy.
Thank you, man. I still struggle obviously to this day, so it's a constant battle, but it's taught me so much, and in so many ways, it's brought me closer to God, um, which is everything to me, and then also just helped me understand how to treat people better, treat myself better, and I think I'm better because of those struggles in the end. So I'm really grateful to be in this position now, and obviously, like I said, still more progress to go, but
Right.
I'm never gonna give up. That's for sure.
That's awesome, dude. But yeah, see what else we got here. Yeah, I think for myself, relating back to your you said you've learned a lot from managing your mental illness. I think for myself, I've met some of the best people,
Hmm,
some of the most unique places. I've been in, hospitals and treatment centers on and off for the past 4 or 5 years. And I think one of the most critical things that I've grown to understand is just the simple fact of just being a kind person and trying to, like you said, put positivity in the world. Because you
absolutely.
never know what someone is going through. You never know what someone is dealing with.
For sure.
They say saying hi only takes 2.5 seconds out of 24 hours,
Yeah,
and that could be the difference between somebody's bad day and someone's good day just being recognized.
for sure. That's a great point. I think I would echo that. The biggest thing that I learned is that like you said, you never know what someone's going through. And I remember probably the most pivotal moment for me. I was on the street, and I won't go into all the specifics of my OCD because that would take forever, but I was basically trying to walk home from school. I was a senior in high school at this point, and I couldn't move. Like I was just like on the street for like an hour and a half. I ended up having to call my dad to come pick me up, but I basically couldn't really make progress, physical progress towards where I was going. And I was kind of just on the street. I was like pacing back and forth, just kind of like screaming at myself, honestly, like in the middle of a New York City sidewalk.
Jeez.
And and I saw people looking at me, obviously, like what's going on here. And after a while, it kind of dawned on me like if I was one of these people and I saw this guy being me on the street, like I would be afraid.
Right.
I would think of him as a crazy person. And it took me a really long time to sort of admit this to myself. But in that moment, I was like, well, they would kind of be right. Like I am acting like I mean, crazy person is a pretty broad term. I don't know if that's a, sensitive enough word for it, but for lack of a better word, like I was one of these crazy people that parents like tell their kids to stay away from. So once I realized that, it gave me a new sort of perspective on anytime I would see somebody else or hear of somebody else or interact with somebody else that was behaving in a way that, I wouldn't necessarily expect. And from that day forward, every time I was in those situations, my first sort of reminder to myself was like, you don't know what these people are going through. Because at that point in my life, like I would have liked to think I was still a functioning, normal, quote unquote, member of like society, which could be argued, obviously. But for all intents and purposes, I was like still a respectable, normal guy on the
Right.
outside. But obviously, at that point in my life, I was acting like somebody with a severe mental illness. And so anytime I would see that going forward, it reminded me like, I'm sure this person's coming from a good place, or I'm sure this person's going through X, Y, or Z, and it doesn't really matter to me. I'm just going to be as kind to this person as I can because maybe they're not going through anything and maybe they're just being rude, or maybe they're just not a nice person. Maybe they're just not really respectful of other people. But in all likelihood, they probably are, and they're just going through a tough time. So, from that day forward, it really changed the way I see the world, and especially how people sort of behave in it. And
Yeah.
I think that's the biggest thing I've learned from it.
Yeah, dude, I'll give you a lot of credit for opening up like that on the podcast. That's stuff I want to talk about, but I agree with you. We have different mental illness, but I completely agree. There have been times in my life when if I saw myself, I'd be intimidated, scared, and I would probably judge myself I would probably judge myself.
Yeah, for sure.
Um, But yeah, just trying to be a kind person is, the baseline of what everybody should be aspiring to do, in my opinion.
Absolutely, yeah. I wholeheartedly agree.
I think, as you become a kind person, it takes repetition. Obviously, you can't go from somebody who's really jaded and pessimistic to becoming someone who's,
For,
kind and optimistic. You can't do that in a day, but
for sure.
it takes repetition and it takes effort, and more than that, than a lot of people how much conscious effort you need to exert in order to be the way that you are. 'Cause
100%.
it's probably so easy to revert back to negative behaviors or, revert back to your old ways, but you choose to move forward and you choose to trust God and God's plan and your plan amidst
For sure. I mean, you're
all of the
absolutely
world.
right. It, sorry, go ahead. Were you
Yeah,
say
that's all I was gonna say.
you're 100% right. Like, what does it take really to be kind? That's what drew me to you. I mean, I mean, when I met you, it was probably like my first week, um, like as a freshman. But, so I was kind of like all over the place and I was like trying to process everything and make the transition to college and whatever. And I just saw you as this like super kind soul. I'll never forget one time we were on the range in like practice. I think it was like a couple of days before tryouts and we were hitting like 1,000 balls obviously and we finished up. It was getting dark. It was cold. We were like on our way out and I remember overhearing you go up to coach and asking if, you wanted if she wanted you to pick up the balls. And I'll never forget that. That like stuck with me even to this day
Yeah,
because I was like going through, I was like nervous about tryouts and everything. Like I wasn't thinking about like picking up the balls or like making sure the equipment was in the right place. And then that was just a really impactful moment because I remember it sort of reminded me in that moment, like no matter what's going on in my life, there's other people around me. And those people and treating those people the right way is always going to come first before, my own goals for myself. So
yeah, no, I think,
in that moment, you had a real impact on me. And then
yeah, I appreciate
obviously,
you.
what's up?
I said I appreciate you.
Of course, yeah. I mean, and not just that, but just the way helped me helped acclimate me to everything that was going on. And, that night you invited me to the casino. It was like like a weekend. It was like, I just remember I could really tell that you had a genuine concern for, everybody else around you, including myself as a
Yeah,
person you had just met. So that was really inspiring.
appreciate that, man. Um, but yeah, I mean, you think about the legacy you want to leave, and as if a couple people can say Will's impacted my life, that's a success in my eyes. And
For sure.
something else I learned from my struggles is that, it's not always about myself, it's about the collective human experience and the collective, how everybody's doing, not just how I'm doing.
Absolutely. Yeah,
I
for sure.
learned that, and I remember I had a moment in church whenever they just clicked to me. It's like that's what God, has put me through all of these struggles to understand that life isn't always just about me, and not that we shouldn't, go out there and try to achieve our goals, but just
I
that
100% agree. Yeah.
it's about the collective.
And I think you
About
raise a really, yeah, go ahead.
No, it's about being, like a team player and helping out your friends and even your enemies.
Mhm. For sure. I think you raise a really interesting point. And I've heard this a lot recently because unfortunately I'm dealing with really, really difficult situation right now that's not mental health related. But, um, I heard a couple times on, I don't remember if it was maybe social media or some other preachers maybe, and said a couple times I've heard something along the lines of like the devil, only really targets the people that he's afraid of. that he knows are going to do incredible things in this world. So in a weird way, and obviously I don't know if this will resonate with everybody, like if they're not if they don't have a religious background or participate and practice, religion, but sometimes I feel a little bit proud when I have these struggles and when I feel these struggles and when it's at its most difficult point, because it reminds me that um, when I overcome them, it's going to help to glorify God and carry out His will. And
Right.
to think that the devil is trying to pull me down and trying to target me so heavily and harshly because he knows what's on the other side if I don't get through it, and he knows what he's sort of holding me back from, and would like to think that it's all happening because if I am able to get through it, I'm going to have a real positive impact on people's lives, and that's something that scares
Yeah.
the devil, and something obviously that um, is really intriguing to me. The idea of fulfilling his will, God's will, and being that person and that force in the world.
Yeah, I think whether it's anxiety, depression, schizophrenia, schizoaffective, OCD, PTSD, no matter what it is, I feel like, we all at some point have got to look ourselves in the eye and, just try to embrace whatever illness we have, because most people, if not everybody, probably struggles with something or has struggled with something at some point in time.
For sure.
And, it's about embracing the struggle whenever the struggle comes.
Yeah, for sure.
But yeah, I mean, well, I think that's all the questions that I have. Tristan, really appreciate you hopping on the podcast. Is there any last, words or suggestions that you have to anyone that might be struggling from mental illness or just in general?
Um, I mean the first thing that pops into my head is just the word love. And I think we can have, I mean, we could talk about this for months probably, but I think a life rooted in love is going to be a life that you're proud of, no matter what
Right.
you face. And I think that whenever I'm trying to figure out, obviously as a religious person, from a religious perspective, what do God and Jesus want of me? What do they want me to do in X situation or more broadly in general? But just more generally speaking, what choices do I want to make? The ones that are rooted in love, whether that be for God, whether that be for those around you, your family, your enemies, like you said, or yourself. Um, those are usually the ones, if not always, actually the ones that that you're going to look back on, be proud of, and be happy and grateful that you made those choices and those decisions. So it was love for God and Jesus and my family and those around me that brought me through those struggles because I knew that I was letting them down and I was creating stress and sadness in their lives that I just couldn't let that happen anymore. So there were a lot of things that got me through those tough times and the tough times I'm going through now and throughout my whole life. But it always started with love. And it wasn't until I loved fully that real changes started to be made. So I think that's probably the best advice, if you will. I don't know if I'm qualified to give that sort of advice, but that's probably the best I have.
Yeah, I think that's awesome advice, bro. Love is critical in life. I think if you're able to love over being scared and fearful of the world, don't get me wrong, I'm face my battles with anxiety and fear every day, but you gotta keep moving forward. You gotta overcome it. And you gotta try to write your story in the name of love.
100% for sure.
Because it's much more fulfilling and you'll probably be a lot more grateful person if you choose love over being jaded and pessimistic and whatever. But Anyway, that being said, Tristan, thanks for hopping on the podcast. Really appreciate you, very articulate young man, and I have all the hope that you continue to succeed and do your podcast and do everything that you love to do.
You too,
So
man. I
thanks,
very
Tristan,
much
and
appreciate you having me. Thank you so much. It's been awesome.
alrighty, guys, we'll catch you in the next podcast. See how to end this.